Back in the late 40s and early 50s, when suburbia was just starting off, and development was happening quite rapidly because of the increasing population, not everything was able to be developed at the same time. Houses, roads, sewage, but what about the rainwater? There were little springs that would feed into larger ditches, and these went right through homes. Not through homes, but through their property.
There was a whole creek running down our back garden that was almost underground. We had to have a sump pump.
But it all came down from up above St. Louis and up in the woods there, you know, they were all farmers. The water would come down those fields in floods, you know what I mean?
But the city used to come and build a boardwalk so that people from the train could get up and they could walk up the boardwalk over the water.
And sometimes in the spring you had to walk over a log, and of course I was frightened to do that.
Like the Valois Creek, the one I'm more familiar with, it came down, do you know where the Catholic Church is in Valois? In front of that Catholic church, the church wasn't there. The fish would come up and spawn, you know, from Lake St. Louis. That's how big they were.
Now, as a child, these must have seemed huge. It must have been incredible. Point Clair's very own water park.
We could spend all our day there. We would go in the morning and never come home, and nobody would ever say anything.
And as kids, we used to take the rink boards and go around with our scout staffs, like rafts.
Well, it would freeze sometimes and we'd skate on it, you know, that's how much water.
Now, as a parent, this landscape seems absolutely terrifying.
And I remember one time somebody fell and landed in it, and there was the imprint of the person for the longest time, this girl. Yeah, you know, like we were so free. We had so many good times just playing outside. We were lucky. It was a good era.
Kids at the time may have seemed free, and they probably were to a certain extent, but these were big ditches and parents were starting to get concerned.
The creek itself in the low season some parts would dry up, other parts would be maybe a foot deep, a couple feet wide. In the spring you had to avoid it because the water would really drown you.
By 1956, there were articles in the newspapers really showing that things had come to a head. Parents were concerned and something needed to be done. For example, the president of the Lakeside Heights Citizens Association explained that 4 children had been saved from drowning in 3 months alone from playing in these ditches.
The sad thing, we used to play in the creek, and a family lived up the street here. The young boy fell in and drowned. They found his body in the lake.
So by the early 60s, most of these ditches had been covered up with what we know as now as the rain runoff sewer system, covered up by roads and completely changing the landscape with what we see today. But if you want to see what one of these gorges or creeks or ditches or gullies or springs looked like, you don't have to go to a museum. You just need to go to Terracotta because there's one still there. It's the great grandson of the ditch that was once there. It's the son. It's the grandson. It's the ancestor of the ditch.
Grandson of a ditch.
It's the grandson of a ditch. And it's still working.